Thank you very much, and good morning, Convener. I'm grateful for your careful consideration of this very important bill. As committee is well aware, the UNCRC bill was passed unanimously by the Scottish Parliament in 2021, but could not receive royal assent due to a referral to the Supreme Court by the UK law officers. The Supreme Court judgment has significantly impacted on our ability to legislate for human rights in Scotland, although I would stress we very much respect the Supreme Court's judgment. In amending the bill to address the judgment, I tried to balance three considerations: protecting children's rights to the maximum extent possible, minimising the risk of another Supreme Court referral, and making the law as accessible as possible for users. I reached the conclusion that the maximum effective coverage for children's rights in the present devolved context is for compatibility duty to apply only when a public authority is delivering devolved functions conferred under Acts of the Scottish Parliament or common law powers, meaning that it will not apply when powers are delivered under Acts of the UK Parliament, even in devolved areas. The duty to read and give effect to legislation in a way that is compatible with the UNCRC requirements and the power to strike down incompatible legislation or to issue an incompatibility declarator will apply only in relation to legislation originating from the Scottish Parliament. The Supreme Court judgment means that this Parliament's power to give the Court's remedial powers is limited by the mere fact that existing statutory provision happens to be in an Act of the Westminster Parliament, even when they concern matters on which the Scottish Parliament could and frequently does legislate. This has resulted in a disappointing loss of coverage for children's rights compared with what we had originally hoped to achieve. And while we have tried to minimise the complexity in the approach we have taken, the Supreme Court judgment means that the duties will not be straightforward to understand as we would have hoped them to be. However, the bill will still provide legal protection for children's rights that is not currently available in Scotland or indeed in any other part of the UK. We should also remember that although the sections of the bill impacted by the Supreme Court judgment are powerful provisions, there are other important provisions in the bill that will mean that children's rights are respected in the first place and to help ensure that our statute book is fully compliant with the UNCRC requirements. The bill requires Scottish ministers to set out and report on how they are giving further and better effect to children's rights, regardless of whether the compatibility duty applies, and for listed authorities to prepare and publish similar reports. The bill requires the Scottish Government to carry out a child rights and wellbeing impact assessment for decisions of a strategic nature and, when bringing forward any new Scottish legislation, to make a statement about its compatibility with UNCRC requirements. The more limited scope of the compatibility duty means that it's even more important to create a lasting cultural change about children's rights. I'm confident that we can deliver this as a result of the wider spread support that we're putting in place. This includes a model child-friendly complaints process that can be used regardless of whether the compatibility duty applies, and a wide range of support, training and guidance for public authorities on how to take a children's rights approach. In the context of the current devolution settlement, the most straightforward way to give children and young people the human rights protection they deserve is for the UK Government to incorporate the UNCRC into UK law. We have an important opportunity to lead by example by passing this bill. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you very much, Cabinet Secretary. That was a very detailed and informative opening statement. And the Cabinet Secretary will be aware how keen I am to engage with young people and represent their voices as often as I can. So my first question is not my own. It is, in fact, from Arden, who is a member of the Children's Parliament. So Arden says, I would love to ask how the bill will change things for children and if children are going to help implement the bill and be consulted on.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you to Arden for the question. It is very important as we have gone through this process and also as we look forward to what comes next after, I hope, this bill is passed, to ensure that children and young people remain very much at the heart of everything that we do. And it is very important that we remain very, very focused on the dialogue that we're already having with children and young people and keep that going. So, for example, one of my most recent meetings on this was with two members of the Scottish Youth Parliament, not the Children's Parliament, where Arden is, but the Scottish Youth Parliament, to talk about some of the issues that are in the bill, and also, very importantly, to talk about the steps about what happens next. Now, we need to ensure that we are giving children and young people a much greater awareness of their rights, and we have a number of funding streams to ensure that that's happening at the moment. And as I said in my opening remarks, that will hopefully help Arden and others look at not just where we've had to change this legislation in the reconsideration stage and the compatibility duty, but wider about their rights, and also how to ensure that their rights are being respected and observed. So there is a great deal of work that has gone on and will continue to go on. Obviously, both myself and other Cabinet Secretaries and Ministers meet with the Children's Parliament and Youth Parliament representatives, and we have the Cabinet takeover as well. And UNCRC has, for a number of years, been one of those issues they've spoken about, and it is for them to decide their topics. But I would be surprised if that's not a continuing discussion we have with them.
Thank you very much.